your fly, the chances of you fishing it are between 0 and 0. In every demo that I do, I always ask if somebody out there on Face Twitter land has one of these Maddin, not the Oogie Boogie brand, the actual Maddin whip finisher, hit me up. I'm on the Instagram. But May, right back at it.
Okay.
As soon as that water drops back down and starts warming up again, because it'll be at 38 for seems like it just drags on. It does. It really does. Like 38 to 42 to 44. That stuff is not my jam. When it gets to 46, 48, then I'm pumping again. But that's usually at the fall.
Okay.
The one thing you'll realize is when it's cresting, you're okay. When it hits the top and starts going down, it's brutal on those free flowers. Just brutal. Tough sledding. So that's another thing to watch. It's okay if you're on that rise, but once you're on the top side or going down, it's like everything, you missed it. Everybody already ate. And there is a thing that we call I call it the resource scarcity factor. Right? If you have a time frame where there has been zero, the blizzard we had, the old Elliott came blowing through. Right? So when old Elliott came blowing through, there was nobody fishing, nobody was doing jack nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Elliott kind of went away. And it started getting a little warmer. Well, that was like a fake spring. But meanwhile, these fish have all gone post-spawn already. Megabite happened in early December. Megabite.
Yeah.
Every fish in the river was eating. And then you had the Elliott. Well, after Elliott, there was a huge bite too. And it's because of that 2 weeks of research. Those fish thought they were not going to have anything forever. And all of a sudden, they got a little taste of it, and it was awesome.
Right.
And then a lot of rivers got really high and didn't really fish that well for a minute.
How much variation would you have in the flies that you
Now, that's a good question. So, a lot of those I tied for very recently or probably early spring before the flood. Because I like running that size fly. That's just one box that I have that I threw in as an example.
Yeah.
I have another couple sizes that I do for different other things. But me, myself, I'll do 2 4s a lot.
Okay.
I do 4 6s a lot. I do 1 2s a lot. So, but I'll go from 1 2s all the way, and that's my progression. I do one size and then a smaller size, one size and a smaller size.
Are you referencing?
And that's another thing too, is your bait fish grow too.
Believe it or not, they do grow.
Yeah. So, if anybody ask any big lake angler, what happens to those alewives, and they get bigger, right?
Yeah.
So you go from your small stinger spoons
That's right.
to your bigger, Magnum spoons in the fall.
I never put that together until just.
Yeah, so it's the same. It's the same deal in these rivers, man. These bait fish grow, and they also hatch. So the spring you'll have a lot of things hatching. You'll have sculpins will get more orange because they carry their eggs, right? So that's also their heads kind of turn a little different color too. Black.
The gobies turn black.
Yeah, right. So you'll get black-headed. Those bottom fish will have a black toward their head, right? One of my best steelhead flies is a circus peanut with a black head.
Well, they match the bottom real well, especially rock.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's a pretty good one in the spring for me, even down here. I'll run, do the old Feenstra.
Yeah.
With the, piece of.
Throw some shit in
Yeah,
there.
right. You put a little bit of that, I forgot the material.
Features flies are simple, like whole slugger stuff. They're
Right.
very simple.
Right.
They catch a lot of fish.
Right. Well, that's because he's a guide. So when you're a guide, you're going to come up with something that's as grassroots as you can.
Right. Something you can whip up in that night.
Right.
Yeah.
I just say, ignorance shouldn't be rewarded. Point and pull. All right. So we're going to start off. We're doing the rear of the hook, and we're doing a number 4 Arex. And this is the 605, but you can use a 610. I use the 605s because I'm looking for short distance, high penetration. So I use a little bit lighter wire hook. Now I make the same exact hook in a heavier version, which is the 610. The difference between the original fly and these hooks that we have now are wider gap, shorter shank. So with a wider gap, shorter shank hook, we got to use something to add space for the. that in that Renzetti. I'm just going to attach, and I use like 6/0 thread like all the time, so I use 6/0 thread. But, all right, so we're going to take some marabou here. And what I like to do is I'll strip them down to the quill here and try to pair. I do 2 of them. Because the one thing you can run into when running some marabou is having too thin you can end up with like this little tiny straggly thing, and you want to make sure you have a little bit of meat behind it. So I do two feathers.
Are you real picky about your marabou and pick them out of all they look uniform?
I try to make them as uniform as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you don't really want to tie something when you're doing this weapons manufacturing of fly tying. It's not really like arts and crafts. It's just don't tie anything you ain't afraid to lose. There's no times tippet in streamer fishing. It's pound test. So what I'm going to do is I'll pinch this onto the back and a really cool little trick that you can do to keep your feathers from swinging around is you just kind of grab it and then grab your actual thread and pull it down, and that's called the pinch method, and that'll keep it so it's on the top. And you can wrap over this thing if you want. So I'm actually using that flash, not necessarily to like call the fish in, but to like track my fly. So I can watch that flash, and if it disappears or you can see something near it, you know you got bit. But hook sets are free. If you see a fish eat your fly, set your hook. If you see one bite your buddy's fly, set your hook. So what I'll do is I'm going to add a little bit of this Flashaboo, Crystal Flash, Super Whistle Flash, whatever it is, Flash, anything. There's hundreds of varieties. Buy them all. I'm just basic grassroots here. And what I like to do is I'll lay one on one side. I'll lay it on one side of the hook, and then I'll kind of fold it around.
When you say buy them all, you mean buy all the colors.
Yeah. You never know. And then what I'll do is I'll send them all to the Army at the same time without cutting my marabou. Don't cut your marabou. Just cut the flash.
Yeah, that's good.
And you can have it extend a little bit beyond. I don't know if it's zoomed in there or not, but you can, it actually is, the flash is extended just beyond that marabou, and that's a good way to ensure that you can actually see it and that you're not going to cut it off or your marabou. And that's just an accent, and it's up, a lot of the steelhead guys that are running some of these peanuts for the steels will do a lot of flash.
I inherited some fly tying material. This guy must have had 50 different colors of flash.
Right. You never have enough.
That's a good deal, man.
And by all means, if there isn't one that you like, you can make it. Take like 4 different strands of this, 3 of that, 2 of that. You want copper and brown, we'll make it. Copper and gold, whatever you want to do. It's all doable. I'm an offender of wasting a little bit of material, but I'll always get like an ample amount. Some guys just tie it off like you did there, where you have the whole chunk dangling. This is I'm just cutting it in sections because it's a little bit easier for me to deal with.
Right.
I know I got the Renzetti, but I have my arm off right now, and I have my back plate off just for the camera, so I'm just going to do the old school. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this thread and I'm going to leave it about halfway.
Okay.
About halfway up that hook. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take a couple wraps. So and I'm saving this piece. This is a process of which it's very easy to do. But remember, everything you put on this fly, you're going to have to cast that thing, right? So I see guys go out there and they'll put like 20 rubber legs off the back end and 20 off the front. And meanwhile, you have this bass jig. You're going to have to cast that thing. So me, I like using as little as I can get away with usually. I'm pretty sparse with my ties. So I'm going to put 3 rubber legs in the back and I'll do like 4 in front. And what I'll do here is I'm take a couple wraps over it. And then I'm just going to fold it over just like I did that Flashaboo. And you'll have it, you know, there's no figurating. There's no any, you know, this is pretty straightforward stuff. So once you got the, notice how you'll still have that in there. You don't want to cut that off. It'll save you a step if you don't. So I'm going to move this up so you're about 1 eyelet or so away from that number 4 hook here. And I'll do, people always say, oh, this way or this way. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just going by whatever way usually the material tells me. You know, if there's a curvature of a feather one way or the other, I'm going either this way or that way. So there's really, I know some sticklers used to get after me about that, but I always go with whatever the material does. And about 80% of the time for me, it's back wrapping. But you'll see me go countering. I'll do both directions often. So that sometimes throws people off. But it's really whatever the material tells you. Period.
You think you get better durability if you go? Is that why some of them do it?
You know,
It seems like they go opposite their thread turns.
sometimes
Yeah.
I do a lot more than forward all the time. But a lot of guys say forward all the time.
Right, yeah.
If you wrap in gold wire on like on a woolly bugger,
Right.
you do opposite.
Right.
Then it works better.
It's really, it doesn't matter. This is a means of production. So however that thing gets on that hook is a good way. It's not really arts and crafts. This is weapons production. Only reason to tie a fly is to lose it in a tree, right?
I prefer a fish myself. If you can choose your own thing.
Oh no, you can't lose it in a fish. Just use heavier line.
Okay.
Little trick on this too. When we're doing these feathers here, you guys all see this fluff down here, right? This is a little tidbit that actually stumped a few actual fly tying companies before. They thought I was using 2 materials. And sometimes I do. I've actually gone back to marabou more during the COVID because chickens were tough. People were sitting on their, they were tying some flies. It was tough to get stuff. But this is actually the fluff here. You always want to save a wrap of that, right? So on this one, I already cut it. You'll see that. And there's a few wraps of that. You want to save that. So you'll have your thin material protecting your thick material. You'll have it'll be a nice webby thing. And this goes for other wet flies too. Like if you do soft hackles or hex bugs or any of that other nymphus business, you can, use the fluff on there. It actually adds a ton to your fly. It's like it's a trick. It's a trick. I would think so.
Yeah.
But it's a tip, and it saves a whole, saves some issues. I'll just tie that in. A few wrap. And this one, the feather tells me to go this way, so that's what I'm doing. And you'll see with what that web will do, it'll give you a little bit of mustard to your fly too.
Spicy.
Yeah.
And you're teasing it back.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So as you're progressing forward, you're kind of manipulating that material.
You just tie it with the stem forward?
Yeah, I tie the bottom of the feather.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how you can get that instead of having the web forward.
Yeah.
You have the web in the back with your stiffer fibers protecting that. And you could also play with the diameter of your feathers too. So this one's a little bit thicker than what I would normally do, but it's fine. Good. Adds a total different shape to your fly if you go with a bigger feather. Just make sure you don't do a smaller one in the front. Try to keep it bigger or the same. So what you did there was you just basically collared up that fiber, and when you get it to the point where you feel like you're done, make sure your feather's in front of that thread. Tie off your knot. In every demo that 30-pound mono. Okay. I use mono. The huge debate rambles on and on about what you connect flies with. I do this because it lasts longer, period. You know, more than likely. So I use mono and I use 30-pound. And I like to do this while the fly is in my vise. And what I'll do is I'll kind of give myself plenty of mono too. I don't know if you guys have mono, but I can definitely pass this wheel around. So it's not just about putting a bunch of nonsense in your box. You got to give those rejects to your buddies.
That's right.
Or leave them in the trees,
Set,
yes.
Right.
set them up for success.
Yo, you have an A box and you have a B box.
So it goes.
And within about the first 3 bends of river, the guy knows what box he's in.
Yeah.
You have a hook that has a wide gap that's actually can get through a nice sized fish's mouth and stay put.
Right.
So you don't have to, you're not as paranoid about life. But that being said, the spacing with, if you were just to tie this here, you would have 2 hooks that meant literally nothing. So you want to have some form of hook bead in there for spacing on these shorter shank hooks. And it doesn't always have to be a big bead either. I mean, and some of the samples out there, I use like 4mm beads. I use 5mm beads. I use 6mm beads based on the size hooks a lot of times. So I would say on this one, I'm used to running like two 4s on this one, probably 2 4 or 5mm. So I would go probably 1 6mm on this particular size fly with this, 2 4.
We're just setting it up like this.
Right.
All right.
I'm doing 1 bead on this one with this little herb. Then I'm going to fix this thread to the front hook here.
So your philosophy is a bigger gap, more hook, right?
Yeah,
More hook means more hookups.
right. Not out there for practice. No, I don't want to be the guy working for PETA.
No, I'm not trying to train anything. I'm educating fish. That's what I
Right? Yeah. Teaching them.
teaching them lessons.
Yeah.
They
Right.
teach me
Don't
lessons.
ever do that again.
Or they teach me lessons. I'm not
Yeah.
sure that's how that works. It works both ways.
I like it. I think it's good.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah, it works both ways.
Right. Right.
What's that? It does, yeah.
All right. So now we got our 30-pound SA tippet on there, which I like using. I like using the SA actually, but the Maxima or Mason, any kind of hard mono will work.
Now, how'd you orientate your mono? I mean, that loop.
Mono is directly on the top of the hook with the two wings pointing out here.
The 2 wings pointed, okay, right on top.
And like I said, I've used ample amount of line. And what you can do is I go to about 2/3 of the way up the hook.
Now, is your bead tight to the bend?
And it's not tight. I want a little bit of motion there. And again, I'm not 100% with these sizing. So I'm only using one of these 6mm
Yeah.
on this hook here.
So you guys are small. It's not really touching the bend. It's just a
No,
little off.
there's a little bit of free flow,
Okay.
but not too much where the thing turns into, a science project.
Where it folds up on itself.
Right.
Yes.
It's that part.
That's not good. Just don't like that.
No. All right. Now, when you get this, don't cut this off. You want to fold this back.
Oh, that's what I was doing. Okay.
Yep.
That's right there. Okay.
Because if you fold that back and you hook big wampum and you pull the back end, it'll just come right out of there.
Oh, there's some upset
I was
people.
wondering, I've seen it, where people run that through the hook shank and back through.
You can do that too. Any way it gets there. This method I've been doing for so long, and it can pull the Queen Mary.
Okay.
I'll take your word for it.
Because the fly was so weird when I first made it that somebody said it was like in a circus act, a clown show. And that's kind of what I just said, Circus Peanut. And I called it that. But that's a good question. But that's literally, it's a circus act. Now, this is another first for a lot of flies of the time, because when we did lead eyes, and I always say, lead's not dead, right?
Right.
Because lead still works, and it
Yeah.
works everywhere in the country
Yep.
and world for that matter. So the clouser was always tied on the top, so it would jig, right?
Right.
These eyes are tied on the bottom,
So it's not,
right?
hold on a second.
It's going to track
So
straight.
it's going to track the
Right.
hooks to the bottom.
Right, it's going to track. Right, it's going to
So-
track.
So you keel the.
It also casts a little better too.
Oh.
Is what you'll find.
I screwed up already. Okay, I'll
Don't
back
tie
up.
it. Whatever you do, don't tie them on the top.
And a couple eye back.
Yeah, you always want to save yourself some real estate in the front. I don't know if that shows up anywhere, but make sure you got some real estate there. Or tie your eyes in. Here's actually, if you guys haven't tied eyes in, you can figure eight them. You can go around each individual one. Go around the base. Go back to the figure eight. With a couple wrap in front, couple wrap in back. That's kind of the wraps that I use to weld it down. In worst case scenario, there's all this stuff that you use lights for. You can glue it on there if you had to. And what doing the eye in first is going to give you guys, is going to give you a point of reference.
There you go.
Dumbbells? Need a dumbbell?
No problem.
That's your buddy.
Oh, so at any rate, you got your, wrap that up, tie it in the back, and then again, you're stopping that sucker about halfway. Actually, a little bit less than halfway, because you got the eyes and a little bit of real estate in the front. And again, they're dealing with these rubber legs. You can, the tab on the end, you can actually like leave them like that so they don't become averant on you. You can leave it right where they kind of stuck together, because it's pretty hard dealing with like 4 or 5 or 6 of those if they were loose. And again, don't over leg this thing, because it's going to turn into a monster on you if you do. So I'm doing 4 again, and 4 in the front, 3 in the back.
Oh, so you're just repeating the same
Right.
process?
Yep.
What was the process? No, obviously no. You put, Marvel, you did not.
Nope, not yet. Because remember, we got our tail already done back there.
Correct, right?
Once you got your leg in there, I'm gonna notice how it's just sitting there. One's on kind of on the top of the hook, basically. What I'll do is I'll wrap a few times back going forward, but also saving a little, like two wraps of the Estes. So you're behind those lead eyes. Then you could snip off your Estes. And you could send your legs to the arm. Now, another feather. Let's pick a winner though.
Chicken dinner.
And you could also, at this point, as an optional situation, you can add a little piece of marabou. You can wrap it, what I like to do. But you don't have to. It's an optional step. If you want to add a little bit more mustard to your fly at the front end, you can just do that same process by wrapping the marabou, just like you would with the feather. I'm just going to do the feather on this one, but it is an optional step. but you don't have to. It's an optional step. If you want to add a little bit more mustard to your fly at the front end, you can just palmer, do that same process by wrapping the marabou, just like you would with the feather. I'm just going to do the feather on this one, but it is an optional step. Like I said, I kind of went back to it during the COVID, started using a lot more marabou. Simply because it was easier to attain. Tying in my feather back here.
You tied a lot then.
Yeah, oh yeah. Kind of.
I rate my fly tying time in beers.
Right.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that can happen.
This is about a 2 beer.
Yeah, right.
Your flies get
Perfect.
better or worse?
So I'm gonna palmer this thing, and this is all behind those eyes, guys.
Oh, you don't go over the eyes?
Nope, don't go over the eyes.
No, messed up right. That's what I do.
Well,
Forgetting ahead of myself.
jumping ahead. I'm trying to get everybody on target here.
I'm sorry.
Come back inside the
back
swim
in the
booth.
class for me.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. So everybody, you're behind the eyes. You're tying this feather off behind those eyes. You can use dubbing for this.
Yeah,
You can use,
like that.
any number of things for that. There's zero rules whatsoever on this
I
thing.
find when I make like hamburgers at the house, it's like whatever goes.
Right,
I got
right.
this.
Whatever you got it.
You make it work. It's
Whatever
fine.
you have for this fly, you can do. It
Right.
is very, very universal.
Right.
Wool, hair, do the, that color dubbing, the ice dub. You can make an ice dub head on this thing.
That's pretty slick. I like that.
Right. So now we got another piece of Estes here.
Oh,
I'm
you
gonna
tied
tie it in again right behind the eye.
Oh my gosh.
Really? You got to pack her in.
You got to have real estate there.
Sold it.
Don't sell that real estate.
Sold it. Okay. I'm sold. All right then. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can.
Because this is you're gonna make this is gonna be your little head here. This is gonna be
Let's
the
fish it off.
yeah. You're gonna finish it off with this Estes. So you're gonna go around a few times. You're gonna go through the center. Then you're gonna make a little ball there,
Thank you.
like a little Estes egg.
Oh. Yeah, no, it's my first. Yeah, it's true.
Goodies with finishing.
Yeah, I'm finishing.
Yeah,
You
there
make
you
a little
go.
head on there. You
That's a
kind
good
of
sign, right?
you wrap around the try to go around the eyes, figure 8. Make sure you get a little ball of a head on there. And you could do these in any color with anything you got.
As long as it matches the body.
I mean, it's an advantage. But you do want to have a little flicker, and a flicker can be, you can do white legs or something.
Okay.
You can do one white leg on each end and some black to mix it in. There's no rules to it. It's just this basic fly that you can, a 2-hook jobby streamer that'll probably catch fish anywhere on the planet, providing you have the right color and size. When you take that first thread wrap, to me, that's confidence. Because if you don't take that first thread wrap and you rely on going to a bin, right?
Mhm.
You absolutely know 100% certain that that thing's already fished your water.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, if you take all rowing, all casting, and all guides can't row, and all anglers can't cast, and you're just going down the river in a ping pong, the only thing you got is your fly, right? So, that's something to think about.
As long as the next guy, the 20 guys in front of you or 10 guys in front of you don't have the same stuff.
Or they aren't ping ponging in front of you. Because you like to be the first one ping ponging rather than the 8th one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fresh is best, huh?
Right, yeah, right.